Nhlekani vakokwana. Greetings from Usoni. Ntukulu wa Vangoni ni Vandau. I want to address the controversial BMW advert by addressing two things. The first being the statement where it was taken from originally, and the symbolism and meanings behind what you are looking at right now. For those that might not know where it originates from, I'm sure most people do. It all started with a statement that I am my ancestors' wildest dreams. It is purely based on the ignorance that this generation has done more than the generations that have come before us. And this illusion of progress comes from the idea that integration brought progress to African people. And that is a bunch of hogwash. Anyone that knows their history knows that African people do not even measure up to the most ancient achievements of our ancestors, or their achievements during segregation in the United States and apartheid in South Africa, where they built their own businesses and built cities and controlled the community economy. There's also another saying, I am not my ancestors, implying that they do not tolerate, or they take action, they do not tolerate nonsense from white supremacists. Yet this generation does not even measure up to the revolutions that were launched by our ancestors throughout the African world during the times of enslavement and so on and so on. So clearly these statements come from pure ignorance of history. Now back to the controversial advert. You will notice that the part ancestors has been scratched out. For when you speak of our ancestors as African people, you are talking about the picture you are looking at right here. A union of the masculine and the feminine, which represents divinity. And the best weapon that our enemies have ever launched against African people is actually breaking this African divinity you are looking at right now. And they did that through feminism. When you look at this picture, you can see an upside down triangle. I will explain the meaning of that upside down triangle shortly. I'm sure everybody has seen and heard of a hexagram, but very few of us actually understand its origin and meaning, for it does not have origins in Judaism and the Star of David. To be continued in part 2 that's coming up right now. Check it out. As I was saying in part 1, the hexagram does not originate in Judaism, but in ancient African spirituality, which predates Judaism by thousands of years. And everybody knows that the oldest structure that looks like a pyramid or a triangle comes from ancient African spirituality. We see it in ancient Kemet, right from the Old Kingdom. And this is before any form of religion that people practice today came into existence. So what you're looking at here is the pyramid upright, which represents masculine energy. And the opposite, the inverted pyramid, it represents the feminine energy. The pyramid, the upright pyramid, pierces into the sky, and the inverted pyramid would receive. It represents an opening that receives. So in ancient Kemet, they used the unification of the two pyramids in geometric form to represent the unification or the union of the masculine and the feminine energy, which equals divinity. So when the black man and the black woman stay together, that is our divinity. That is why all allegories in African cosmologies are represented by the unification or the union or the unison of both the male and the feminine, because that is what gives you God or divinity. The best examples come from ancient Kemet with God Happy, where God Happy is represented as both masculine and feminine. You can see the beard of God Happy and also the breast. So what you see right here is the upside down triangle that represents the feminine element. And a black woman who has a posture of a very strong woman. And there's nothing wrong with a strong black woman, because our ancestors are a great example of strong African women who ruled empires. What is wrong is that they have removed the word ancestors, and ancestors, foremothers and forefathers. So there is a removal of the black masculinity in this picture. It says we are our wildest dreams, and the only part that is represented is the feminine element. Look out for part 3 for the conclusion. In part 2, we explain the meaning of the upside down triangle and the African woman standing tall and strong. It gives you the picture that they've sold to African people when they introduced integration, the strong black woman who doesn't need a man. And that, family, is the cause of most of the problems in the black community, including gender-based violence and children raised out of wedlock so they don't have a mother and a father. And someone may ask why I say that it's the cause of gender-based violence. Because single mothers cannot raise masculine men. They raise men that are void of masculinity, that are very feminine and very spoiled, so they do not have the fortitude to face reality in the world. So they go through life throwing temper tantrums and reacting violently to anything that goes against their will. They lack self-control, which is an attribute of masculinity. And so to destroy and to launch an attack on black divinity, they have launched an attack on black masculinity. And as a result, we have the weakest generation of Africans that has ever existed since time immemorial. And that is because through slavery and colonialism, we maintained our African divinity by staying together. We fought together, and only until integration did they manage to get us to self-destruct by giving up our black divinity. That's it from me, Musoni. Ntukulu wabangoni Newandao. Thanks for watching. I will end this by sharing an advert from Colgate, and those who actually understand the video will get why I am sharing this video. Peace and African power.
My daughter with all my heart, and I wouldn't trade being a single mother for anything, because the truth of the matter is, although it's got its challenges, being a single mother doesn't scare me one bit.
And for those that think that I am against the idea of strong black women, I have not seen any social media content creator that has shared as much history in relation to how powerful African women were throughout the time of antiquity, even up until recent history. And anyone that has the knowledge of the history that I've been sharing about how powerful African women were in African society and throughout the world in antiquity understands why feminism has no place in African society. Because all these great African women, when none of them were feminists, and neither are the reign queens of the Balobedu, the Mujajis. Because anyone with good sense will understand that feminism, which was actually created by European women who do not even today believe in equality, would not form a system that calls for equality of black women. That's a contradiction. And anyone that knows the history of feminism, and unfortunately